Dan Kapelovitz, you're a criminal defense attorney.
Correct.
Cool. And you're also a politician.
I don't know if I'd call myself a politician, but I have run for office 3 times.
Running is interesting, isn't it? And I'm in the Echo Park Neighborhood Council,
All right.
and it's educational to be on the other side of an issue from someone and try to not stay, like enemies.
Right. I like running because you do get to meet tons of people of all walks of life, and it's pretty fun. So I'm gonna probably keep on doing it. I know I'm always a long shot candidate.
You're a progressive.
Yeah.
You ran for governor, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Wow, that sounds pretty fun.
Well, I ran the recall, but I was against the recall.
Oh.
But I was running in case it went through. I'd be an alternate to like Larry Elder.
Oh wow.
But
Larry Elder.
yeah, he was going to win if the recall went through. But I thought the recall was kind of ridiculous. So, but then Newsom was telling people not to even vote on the second question. Like first question of whether to do a recall, and he's telling people just to ignore the second question, which is ridiculous because if he would have got recalled, then Larry Elder would have been the governor. So I say no, you should vote for someone you like.
I didn't know too much about Larry Elder, but I'm kind of curious about this election now that you're on the other side of it. Who the candidates are
Yeah.
Gascon and
Hockman.
And is he kind of like conservative, relatively conservative for the field?
Yeah, I don't even think he's relatively. He's conservative. He ran for attorney general. He was a Republican candidate. Now he's saying he's independent because he knows that he can't really. A Republican's not going to get elected in Los Angeles County. In fact, he ran for AG when I ran for AG also. In LA County, he spent like millions of dollars and only got about twice as many votes as I did in LA County. So, and I didn't spend anything. So, he realizes he can't say he's a Republican. It's a nonpartisan position, so it's not going to say Democrat or Republican, but he's saying I'm an independent, and he just, and then he's basically trying to mislead people just to win, and that's exactly what you don't want a DA to do is win by any means possible. That's exactly what they're not supposed to do. They're supposed to seek justice. So I'm definitely endorsing Gascon. I hope everyone out there votes for Gascon.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise I think it's going to be bad.
Yeah, I hear you, man. We got this debate coming up tomorrow night. Big time lead up to some heavy decisions.
Yeah.
Why do you think Gascon's deputies didn't I remember in one of the interviews you mentioned that he didn't really meet with people. Maybe he doesn't have the soft kind of skills to kind of develop relationships.
Well, that was sort of my critique of him. Is why I decided to run, because his directives that he put out, they're great. He uses the science and the data and talks about how we overpunish people and actually has negative consequences and things like that, and alternates to putting everybody in prison forever, mass incarceration. But his deputies, they sort of just do whatever they want.
How is that? I guess you mentioned that they're just sort of protected because of their job.
Yeah, there's this civil servant protection, and it's almost impossible to fire people.
Like teachers in a way.
Yeah, and everyone he fired or even just moved or did anything, they sue him, and they for millions of dollars, and they've actually paid out people, and
wow.
Yeah, so it's just crazy. I think it's like the retirement plan of all these deputies. Let's just sue for get a couple million or whatever, and they're really just sticking to the county. It's not like Gascon's paying for it, so it's kind of it's kind of disgusting they're even doing that. And then I think he did probably nothing he could have done, but he did come in. He didn't really meet with all the deputies. He was an outsider. He wasn't up through the departments. They probably, no matter what he did, they wouldn't have liked that. But he
where did he come from?
Well, he was a DA of San Francisco. He was a former chief of police or police officer. He has, everyone points out, he's never tried a case. He's not really a line, he's never been a line deputy. So And that was the other thing. That was one case I was making for myself. Like, I'm in court every day. I know what actually goes on, and I actually probably know. Even they all agreed with me. I probably know more deputy district attorneys than he does because I deal with them every single day. We disagree on what outcomes cases should have and everything. So, and I mean, he is starting to hire more people, and I actually heard him speak recently. He's like saying that's going to be priority because that's what he should have done. Just they have all these openings. Like,
How is that? I mean, that they could leave all those jobs open.
yeah, it makes no sense at all. They claim people don't want it. That's not true. People want to work for the DA. They say, oh, they're leaving.
Those jobs have those protections.
Yeah, exactly.
Benefits.
You can do whatever you want, and yeah, and it's a good job. I mean, and they claim, oh, people are now jumping to the Attorney General's office because they don't like Gascon. But he can hire people straight from law school. You can probably get the best students. That's what I would do. I just recruit the best students that are actually into seeking justice, and then at least he'd have a big percentage of the office like agreeing with him instead of all these people that totally disagree with him. And 4 deputies ran against him in the office, and luckily they didn't win. And actually, they might have won if they would have got behind one of them because they split the vote for you boys. That's why I thought I actually I had a theoretical chance to get in the top 2 because there's 12 people running, and I was sort of the only progressive besides Gascon. So yeah, I mean, I don't know what's gonna happen because Hockman has a lot of money. He has all these business interests, so I don't know why they're so into like supporting him.
Is there any polling about it?
The only pollings are ones that Hockman like pays for,
Right.
and so there hasn't really been polling. Actually, I don't know if there's been any since the primary. I mean, his whole thing is look, I mean, Gascon. I think he got, I can't remember, like 25% of the vote, and way more than Hockman. But Hockman's like, well, all these people, 75% of the vote didn't want him to be.
Right.
But they might have voted for me, or they, so. Plus, the primaries are usually more conservative because a lot fewer people vote, and this is going to have, it's going to be this Trump-Biden thing in November. I think it's probably going to attract a lot of voters and hopefully more progressive voters, younger voters.
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to sort of develop this podcast of local politicians and how to kind of, figure out if we can give this thing a real shot with the engagement. And so I want to ask you to just sort of give sort of a primer about some of the issues and some of the differences between like county and city jurisdictions and policies and political power,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know too much. I mean, I don't know. I'm not an expert on it. I mean, the DA is the county of Los Angeles. And that's what's kind of funny because, misdemeanors in the city of Los Angeles are handled by the city attorney. So a lot of these cases that people are saying, oh, Gascon's not even filing these things. It's not even his jurisdiction, really. It's the city attorney. So, I mean, all this critique of him a lot of it's not based in reality. They're blaming him for all this stuff that's really, whoever's DA really, they have a lot of effect on specific cases and specific people or in the criminal justice system. But as a whole, I don't, what causes crime is so complex. It's not like who's DA really. But so that's just, I mean, I don't know exactly what you mean in terms, but so that's the county, and then, there's state and city. I don't, I'm not an expert on the jurisdiction.
No,
I mean, LA County is huge. It's like Long Beach to Lancaster, Catalina's in LA County. I mean, I go to courts all over the county, and it's like, you can have a few hour drive just from one to the other. It's crazy.
So you get cases from the courts.
I have private cases, but the majority of my cases are I'm on this panel where if there's a conflict of interest with the public defender, the alternate public defender, then we'll get the case. So we're a bunch of private lawyers, about like 250 of us in LA County, and we get like, if it's a 3-defendant case, we'll get the 3rd defendant, or if the alleged victim has been represented by the public defender because they have an open case, then that'll be a conflict, things like that.
And is there a lot of kind of range depending on which courthouses you're in?
I
I mean, there's some notoriously.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's some courts that like the culture is just so anti-defendant, anti-justice. It's just the judges are very harsh, the DAs are very harsh. They know they can get away with it because the judges are harsh, and if the juries are harsh, then everyone can get away with it. Sometimes you just got to go to trial because you just got to take it to the people because they actually will acquit your client if they're they're not guilty. Yeah, it's just and like they do whatever they want. Like it doesn't matter who the DA is. They're in their own courtroom and courthouse and they just do whatever they want basically. So yeah, every courthouse is different. It's crazy. Like just going from one to the other.
Yeah, it's wild. In a lot of the interviews that I was listening to, it sounds like there's kind of too much enhancements going on.
Yeah, that was one of the things. That's one of the things Gascon tried to address. Is there's all these enhancements and.
Can you tell what an enhancement is?
Yeah, so let's say you're. I don't know. Some crimes, if you commit them, you get a certain number of years, like 6 years. But then if you commit it for the benefit of a gang, then you might get an additional 10 years or 5 years, or if you use a gun, or if you have a strike prior, then your thing could be doubled, or if it's a third strike, you get 25 years to life. And so it's basically anything besides the adds to your case. Some people say prior strikes aren't really enhancements, they're just alternate sentencing, and that's why, Gascon wasn't going to allege any strikes, and then the deputy district attorney sued him, and now actually the California Supreme Court's going to rule on it, but the lower court said he has to allege strikes, so now they're alleging all these strikes, and Hochman's going to allege them like crazy, and so they affect people of color and the poor people more than obviously rich people, and so it is just all enhancements do that.
So as far as the death penalty, how did it end up costing so much? Why is it such a
one thing they get, it costs a lot just to do the trial, because it's different. It's not like when I get appointed, we get paid hourly. They get paid, $100,000 or whatever. That's probably not even the biggest thing. They take forever, the trials. They, anytime someone's convicted, the appeal. They have all these rights to appeal and habeas. Most people. Well, now there's a moratorium, so people aren't even getting the death penalty. But if even before that, you're more likely to die of like old age or some other cause than being executed, even if you got the death penalty. So it is a waste of resources. I think they house them separately. I don't know, that costs money. Yeah. It's just, supposedly it just costs so much money, and Gascon doesn't file death penalty cases. Hochman says only in rare situations. But anyway, and then there's a moratorium. But if there's a new governor, that could go away.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So have you ever? Do you remember any of the stuff that you studied about the death penalty from your law school? Any of the big? There's a reason I'm asking this. What are some of the bigger, more sort of main texts around the death penalty and its sort of racial application?
Texts?
Do you remember any of them?
Well, I don't know about text, but I actually took a class on capital punishment, and it was kind of a clinical class. So we actually worked at the public defender on special circumstance cases, and so we read a lot about it. The professor had written a book about it, but we read a lot of cases, not so much text.
Gotcha, yes.
But
my dad wrote a book about it.
Oh, he did? What's it?
Legal homicide.
Oh.
It's one of the older, first ones about the application of the death penalty and its racial kind of stuff.
When did he write that?
Oh, it must have been the late 60s, early 70s. It was sort of checking out the old records and data of like race of the victim, race of the,
Oh yeah.
all that stuff.
Well, that's what I was gonna say because there's this case called McCluskey the Supreme Court did. I think that must have been later, but basically they said, I think the studies showed that the race of the victim, if they're white, you're more likely to get the death penalty. And they said, well, so what? That's still not doesn't violate equal protection or whatever, because the law wasn't meant to do that. It's just like and so they upheld it, and then all these Supreme Court justices, sort of as they retire, they realize like there's that famous guy retired, I forget which justice, he said, I'm no longer going to tinker with the death penalty or death. And so I think some of them start realizing they shouldn't do it, but yeah, I mean, it's racist. There's just so many things wrong with it in my mind. I mean, they do have people have been exonerated, have been on death row.
You were on, you worked a little bit on the Innocence Project?
Yeah, just in law school. It was just like like evaluating cases, sort of, not just as a law student, but yeah. So
you had a life before going to law school.
Yeah, yeah. I took a lot of time off.
That's cool, man. I mean, I've always been fascinated with like, the concept of going law and having mastery over the precision of the language and the legal concepts and stuff.
You should go to law school.
I might.
You should do it. Do it, man.
It's doable, isn't it?
Oh yeah, you'll love it. I love law school. It's like
that's funny, man. Everybody talks about it as this sort of, thing to endure, but it's cool. You enjoyed it.
Yeah, and actually, one reason I didn't go right after or like soon after college is because I was kind of sick of going to college. I was like, or school. I've been going to school for whatever, 16, 17 years or whatever. But after working, if you work full time, then you go to law school. It's like a vacation. These people went straight to, from college. They're like freaking out, but it's like, and it's like you have to go to class 2 hours a day. I mean, you have to work a lot on your own, but and it's really interesting. I mean, all the stuff you read is interesting. It's almost like even cases because you read it's almost like a whole history of the United States and even other country, and it's just. I mean, it's really interesting stuff. So, I mean, there's some topics that I'm not that interested in, but yeah, I really liked law school. And then at first I didn't like being a lawyer because I worked at this evil corporate law firm. It's like the worst year of my entire life. But then
just because of what you had to, people you had to kind of advocate for.
And it's not so much that; it's just the work was so tedious, and you have all these like partners that are like your bosses. You have like 100 bosses, and they're all just care about billable hours, and they're all just fighting for money, and it's not, it's just everybody hates it. I mean, everyone says it's like soul crushing, and that's why they pay so much because they have to. Otherwise, no one would go there. Yeah. But that was a bad decision. I should have just gone straight into criminal defense.
Got some other animals.
Oh yeah.
In here, insect. I'm gonna have to.
Is that a fly or
it's a fly?
Oh, okay.
What were the things that you did before you went to law school?
Well, I was a features editor at Hustler magazine.
Right.
That was pretty interesting.
Journalism. That's one of the things I was hearing you on KPCC, and I kind of wanted to ask you about your news sources and what you think about the changing landscape of journalism.
Well, yeah. Well, print journalism is pretty much dead. I mean, exists, but so that's one reason I went to law school because after I left Hustler, I was doing a lot of freelance writing, and you could barely survive, and they barely pay anything. Sometimes they don't pay anything. People write these articles. I think Huffington Post, I don't think they pay anything. I'm not sure, but so. Everything's online, and now everything's not even trying to be objective. They're just trying to tailor to their base or whatever. And Hustler is not like, and we had our own reader. Everyone's tailoring it to their readers or viewers or whatever. But we try to be objective. And yeah, I liked it. It was fun, but. I'm kind of glad I'm not in it anymore. I guess.
Did you get a degree in that, or just?
No, I just fell into it. Actually, this guy who went to Wesleyan, he had my job that I got, and then he quit. And well, while he was working at Hustler, I was writing as a freelancer for him. And then when he resigned, they offered me his job. And then we actually sent him to Afghanistan after 9/11 to try to embed with the military, because Larry Flint was suing the Pentagon for the right to embed journalists. So we sent him out there, and so yeah, I just sort of fell into it randomly. I studied film actually at Wesleyan and religion, but
What happened with the case about the embedding of journalists?
I think they basically let them embed anyway. I think it sort of became moot or something. I'm not sure exactly what happened, because they were basically letting them. Maybe they held there wasn't a First Amendment right to do it. Yeah, it is weird because you always watch like Vietnam footage, and you really don't see footage of like the Gulf War or of it, like Afghanistan. Like you really don't see the same kind of footage that you see like in Vietnam, and I think that really helped like get people against the war when you're seeing all this horrific stuff. And it's kind of weird because now it's so much easier to use video instead of film cameras, and it's, I guess maybe because some is so distant they're just like shooting missiles or but yeah, so that's kind of interesting.
So yeah, what do you? Where do you get your news?
I sort of ashamed to admit this, but I go with the Drudge Report a lot.
Huh.
And
I'm asking because I sort of want to know. I'm sort of just not very intentional about it. I just listen to public radio and.
Well, yeah, I listen to public radio and BBC sometimes, and I'll watch CNN sometimes. I'll go jump around to the news channels occasionally. But I like the Drudge Report. I mean, the Drudge Report really is just sensationalist stories that they link to. It's just links. So, if you look at the stories, they're usually pretty interesting. They're just linking to all these other news sources. And yeah, it's supposed to be a conservative. I mean, it's sort of a conservative thing. And sometimes it seems like they're turning on Trump now, though. So it's weird. Sometimes it's just like the whims of who they like and who they don't like. But I mean, you sort of all. If I read that, and I'll talk to someone who goes to like Huffington Post, you'll get the same story. Or, oh yeah, I read about this. I mean, they seem like they all. And I get the LA Times, and I started getting them. I ran for DA just because to read it. I actually didn't get it before that. But everything in the LA Times, I've already heard about usually like online. So. I don't know. So that's. I mean, I go. I'll look at news just on my phone or whatever. I mean, I don't know. We'll watch. Comedy shows sometimes talk about the news, and
yeah,
you can glean like the stories
right.
from like Bill Maher and
yeah,
stuff
yeah.
like that. I watch that.
Yeah, I watch Bill Maher too, but sometimes I do a kind of like a hate watching.
Yeah, a lot of people hate it.
I don't hate him. I feel like he's so wounded by the criticism of him that he's just always sort of like he hates the young people,
Yeah.
He hates all the young people. But that's kind of a thing you see, like folks who are just they feel. It seems to me like they've been deeply hurt by some of the comments about them and whatnot, and they let it affect them. And it's tough because like he's an important source of like
Yeah, he has these niche like things he likes to harp about or whatever.
I mean, I love comedy. I think comedy's kind of like really important, but I don't feel like he's doing the best comedy sometimes. But I mean, sometimes comedy can like cheapen things for the first laugh.
Even his stuff, like I think his writers look at the same internet I do, and
right.
I've heard some of these jokes before,
Yeah.
But sometimes he's pretty funny, and
I'm kind of sometimes impressed by Seth Meyers, like the I mean, I'm not in love with the fact that it's the same tone every night, but he does. It's pretty dense when he goes into something.
I've never watched it though. I've seen like clips of like that when he does that.
In whatever it's called, in depth or closer look.
Yeah, I've seen those are good, but yeah.
Yeah, Um, but so you made films or still make films?
Yeah, I still make these weird sort of experimental type films. I made this one called Triple Fisher, the Lethal Lolitas of Long Island.
Lethal Lolitas?
The Triple Fisher, the Lethal Lolitas of Long Island, which was sort of like a meta melodrama mashup of the three Amy Fisher made for TV movies.
Oh.
Because every network made an Amy
Okay.
Fisher movie, one with Drew Barrymore, one with Alyssa Milano, and one with this actress named Noelle Parker, who most people don't know. And I sort of cut between them I made a feature-length
cool.
movie where it like keeps cutting between them and stuff. That's why it's called Triple Fisher.
Right.
And so that was actually
Who did the best job as a Long Island?
well.
best Long
I
Island
like
person?
Alyssa Milano's character because she's like this like kind of evil stalker. Because see the one where she was Amy Fisher, it was a Buttafuoco story. Like they had sold their rights to them.
Oh.
And so their whole thing was that she was this evil stalker. She never even had sex with Joey Buttafuoco in that one because at that time he's claiming he never had sex with her. And then there's one from Amy's side, and that's Noelle Parker. She's probably the most realistic and probably does the best acting. But Drew Barrymore, I think it's Drew Barrymore's best acting.
Wow, I'm kind of having a hard time picturing that, but that's what it's about.
See, her story was from like a journalist. They ran out of who to buy the stories from, so they bought like an inside edition or somebody's like.
I gotta watch that. That sounds fun.
Yeah, I can send you the Vimeo link. I show it at theaters sometimes. I showed it at the Los Feliz recently at American
Oh, wow.
Cinematheque. It was pretty fun.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, I'll send you the Vimeo.
What else have you?
I'm working on this one film I've worked on for over 10 years. It's called 48 Hours Literally. And it's the movie 48 Hours with Eddie Murphy and Nick Nolte, but it's going to be, when it's done, it's going to be 2 days long. And so it's a lot of like loops and stretching it out. But right now I'm working on.
So you're only working with the movie footage?
Yeah, only the movie footage.
Wow.
It's funny because I ran into that actor James Remar.
Which character was he?
He's the evil guy, Gans. He's like
Oh.
he's in
Yeah,
everything.
yeah,
He's in
yeah.
Dexter and Warriors and anyways, I ran into him. I was telling him about the movie. He's like, well, I don't know about that, and I was like, he's like, well, I guess it's a worthwhile project. And then like asked if I could like get a picture with him. He's like, you better not use this in your film. I go, no, it's not. It's only stuff in the film. And so he didn't really understand the concept. But right now I'm almost finished with like, I'm calling it a trailer to the movie, but the trailer is the length of the original movie. So it's like a 96-minute trailer. That because I can show that in theaters. I'm still gonna show the 48-hour version when it's done, and I have theaters that say they'll do it, and it's more like a happening. And there's 2 8-hour like sleep segments where like the characters are sleeping. It's kind of looping their sleep,
Right.
so the audience can sleep during that part or whatever.
Damn,
So
that's cool.
I
I do a lot of sampling and looping it with music, and it sounds really neat.
Oh yeah.
But so yeah, I mean Eddie Murphy was a funny dude. Yeah, I mean he was sort of like I obviously a humongous star, but I sometimes think about how he was like this fresh, black actor, as if it had never happened before. You know what I mean? Like, he was this sort of amazing, new character on Saturday Night Live who was able to do this edgy stuff
Yeah.
as if it had never been done before. And it's just funny how like, the Richard Pryor era, everything starts all over. You know what I mean? Like their role. Anyway, he was just like a whole new level for a comedian and a pop star too.
Oh yeah. No, he was awesome. I mean, that was his first movie, I think, and it's kind of a dramatic part. It's not just all comedy, and I mean, he's a great actor too, and I think he did Trading Places, Beverly Hills Cop, and those are all huge. I mean, all his movies are pretty huge. I mean, he does, and there's a new Beverly Hills Cop coming out.
That's right.
I don't know if that'll be any good.
Just started hearing about that. But yeah, he some of his stand up was like stuff that you wouldn't go 5 minutes before he was canceled. You know what I mean?
Oh, today, yeah, I'm surprised he even because you can watch it on
Yeah.
some streaming. I mean, so homophobic a lot of
I know,
it,
I know.
and like I still, we used to listen, have the records and
Yeah,
listen
no,
to it, and because they're almost like bits that are like you can listen to over and
yeah,
over
yeah,
again,
totally.
and the videos. He's wearing those crazy leather outfits and
I
stuff.
heard that those leather. I just heard him talk about it. I don't know how I came across it, but Eddie Murphy was. The hell was I gonna say? I forget. But
The leather outfit.
oh, Steve Martin. I used to listen to Steve Martin records as a kid,
Oh yeah, me too.
and boy, his sort of like style is hard to imagine someone with that silliness nowadays. Just a sort of like a silly.
Oh yeah, his thing was just so I don't know, like high concept or something. I don't know what you'd call it, but yeah, I mean his stuff. It's weird he sort of gave it up like a long time ago. Stand up. I don't know. Yeah, he's good. Yeah, I mean, the weird thing about Eddie Murphy, almost all his skits on, not all of them, but a lot of them on Saturday Night Live are just like almost like his childhood, like buckwheat,
Right.
and or Gumby or.
Landlord.
Oh yeah, that one's not really a childhood thing, but Mr. Robinson's name. There's all these things like him just like parodying like his entertainment, his youth or whatever. But yeah, what's that one? Landlord.
Kill my landlord.
Yeah. There's like that poet.
James Brown one.
Oh yeah, that's true. No, I mean he did everything, I guess.
One guy that got lost in the shuffle was Joe Piscopo.
Yeah, what happened to that guy? Because he was on Saturday Night Live. He was really popular.
Amazing. Yeah, he just disappeared. He became like a bodybuilder, I think I remember.
Yeah, and he's in that movie called Johnny Dangerously. You ever seen that? That's like the one, on a few movies.
Wasn't his main movie? He wasn't like the main character, though, right?
No, like Michael Keaton, but he's like the villain or whatever. Yeah, and the weird thing, he said that thing like, "I'm from Jersey, you from Jersey,"
Right,
and
right.
I've tried to find that on YouTube. I cannot find that. I don't know if there's been somehow the the state of New Jersey has somehow like wiped it off the face of the earth.
That's a whole thing, man. I had one of my first interviews was with my cousin. She's like a badass woman who brought like girls hockey to Southern California and has all these amazing stories. But at one point we started talking about that show, Yellowstone.
Yeah, I saw that.
Well, yeah, but there was a movie called 1883, which was sort of like about the West where they travel to like, immigrants who were kind of using a horse or no horse, just a, buggy. But anyway, the point was there was a word that came out that was not, and the thing got like removed from YouTube because it violated their community guidelines, and it was just like a crazy experience to have like no person I could call or appeal to and offer to remove, made a little, anyway, the whole thing was just removed from existence from YouTube.
Really, just based on one word?
I mean, it was a bad word, and it was.
Yeah, but they have that on YouTube all the time.
I know, but I think because I selected like all audiences instead of just adults.
Yeah.
I couldn't like go back, but anyway,
They censor stuff for the dumbest reasons, and they try. I put some clips of that $40 literally, and then I got a copyright notice, I guess but then they contact Paramount, and then I fought it. Says like fair use, and I guess they send it to Paramount. They have 10 days to sue me. They don't sue me, they put it back up, so they put it back up. But yeah, I had like Facebook censors the weirdest stuff. Like I had this picture. This is like back when this is like 4 or 5 years ago. It was like this meme of Biden, and he's wearing a mask, and he's wearing a mask instead of like pants, and just says like, "Does Monica Lewinsky still work here?" And they censored this saying I was like trying to promote like sex trafficking or something like that. And it's just the dumbest thing. I don't know.
So what's the plan for this upcoming election? I mean, is there any kind of like, other than just sitting back and casting your own vote, is there anything that
I mean, if you want to
getting involved with?
I mean, in terms of the DA's race, I mean, you could just give money to Gascon's campaign. I mean, I actually did.
Could he somehow get his deputies to come in line, or what? I mean, what's
no.
okay?
But
What is he? Has he made any like any speeches about how he intends to sort of be more effective? Or?
Well, only just that he's gonna hopefully recruit a bunch of people. But even them, like I talked to one. He's like, oh yeah, Gascon hired me, so I'm kind of loyal to him. But I'm just like they get brainwashed by the their
Yeah. And I
immediate
think it's probably
supervisors.
a peer pressure thing too.
Yeah,
And if their colleagues aren't on board, they have to survive. I guess.
yeah. So I don't know, but I mean, I still think it's gonna be better because I mean he is doing something like he doesn't allege gang enhancements, and that's
Right.
huge because that's totally racist.
I mean, I'm fascinated. So this house was actually kind of occupied by the family that was running the whole neighborhood gang.
Oh, okay.
And there's bullet holes in the front door, and the history of like how gangs, especially in LA, some places had to kind of like develop just so that they could, protect their own neighborhoods when the cops weren't, doing their job or felt safe come to the neighborhood. It's just fascinating, like.
Yeah, and most people that join gangs, at least the ones I've dealt with, the clients, like they join when they're like 12 years old
Right.
just for protection, their own, safety. It's
Yeah,
like,
no, I mean,
it's not like, it's just crazy. And then,
I think about kids going to schools where unless they join a gang, they can be vulnerable to
Right.
bullying and stuff, and
like,
it's just a horrible friggin' thing to force parents to send their kids to if that's what's going on.
but I had a case where the guy, his whole life, he lived in a neighborhood. There were a lot of gangs, but he actually never joined a gang. He's really into getting education, but he knew people in gangs, and he happened to be riding his bike by someone he knew who was like doing some gang graffiti,
Yeah.
and so they claimed that he was like the lookout, and they added a gang enhancement because you don't have to be in a gang, and so he was facing I think 9 years in prison, and then luckily Gascon came in, they struck the gang enhancement, and all of a sudden it was like misdemeanor graffiti, and then you just got like diversion, and they dismissed the case. Like that's the difference between
Yeah.
a gang
Life.
enhancement and not a gang enhancement, and it's the same. Well, he's innocent anyway. He wasn't even a lookout, but just like look what. If you're facing 9 years, you might take a year or two
Right.
just because you're
That whole
coerced.
thing about like that and the whole bail thing is like pretty wild, and I want to sort of just get your take on some of these things, but I also want to mention that like a couple of folks that I knew who had successfully sort of stayed out of gangs by becoming a drug addict.
Oh,
You know
really?
what I mean? Like,
I never heard
yeah,
that, but that's
well, no, I
interesting.
mean, like, if you think about it, like, if you're not, well, if you're in an area where not becoming a gang member is dangerous, there are limited options, and I'm not saying it was a conscious choice, but I mean, if you think about, not wanting to get involved in sort of a violent sort of situation, drugs becomes sort of an alternative lifestyle and path, and anyway, I'm just sort of making that up based on the folks that I talk to in their life of sort of heroin, addiction, and they're sort of parallel to the gangs, but not in the gangs as much sort of path.
Also, a lot of people like age out of gang activity,
Yeah.
but then they still like they'll forever be labeled a gang member. And if they do commit some, let's say they just commit a burglary, they're gonna say, well, that's for the benefit of the gang because they're gonna give that money to the Mexican mafia or whatever they say. It's just ridiculous. And most people late 20, they're not even
Yeah.
doing that stuff anymore.
Kids and whatnot, I mean,
Yeah.
it does seem sort of like an age thing. I mean, there's a whole weird, sort of, I think, phase of maturity when you get old enough to see the story you've been told in books and how it corresponds to the story you see in life outside of school, and what that makes you feel as a young man, and who you want to become and who you want to not become, and all that stuff. It's a whole other subject, but I kind of do want to, before we wrap up, I do want to ask you about how bail is used and how it can be a real problem.
It's a huge problem because I know there's more low level things, but like often the DA will fight like crazy to have a high bail or not let them out. But then, I mean, it doesn't happen on a super high level, but then they'll offer them a time served deal, and anybody, they jump on it. I've had people take the worst deals just to get out of jail. So that, like, all of a sudden they're not dangerous because they're willing to give them time served. They just want the conviction. So, I mean, it happens all the time. If you are out of custody, you are way more likely to get a better deal, to win your case. I mean, it's just one thing. You can actually help your lawyer easier. You can, find witnesses, things like that. I mean, sometimes it's impossible to
Pay
visit.
your bills.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the other thing. You lose your job if you're in jail. I mean, lose all kinds of stuff. Lose your home, and so there's a case that said it's supposed to be based on they have to take into account the ability to pay, and then all these judges started using that perversely, saying, well, they also can determine whether they're a danger to the community. So all these people that would normally get bail, it's too high they could afford. Now all of a sudden the judges are saying, oh, we can have no bail at all because they're a danger. And it was so sick, and then I think the court basically overruled that, but they still do it. They still will say there was no bail at all. And so then even if they're a millionaire, they couldn't get out. And it's just crazy. Most people actually do come to court, and that's the real point of bail, is to make sure they come to court. And I can see, okay, so let's let them out on reconnaissance. If they don't show up to court, okay, then set bail. You know what I mean? At least give people a chance not to be stuck in jail the whole time they're fighting their case.
Yeah, I mean, the whole experience of being in jail seems like it can traumatize and criminalize.
Oh yeah, and all these people have died recently in the LA County jail system. I don't know if it's like ODing or suicide or what it is, just bad health care. I mean, it's just, it's horrible. I mean, everyone, all my clients are there, so it's horrific. And also when they go to trial or even go to court, they wake them up like at 3 a.m. and then they have to wait around and then take a bus for an hour, and then, I mean, it's crazy. So
minor, you end up making an important decision.
Yeah, so I had a guy plead guilty. He was totally innocent just because he'd sick going to court. He's sick, woken up every morning. Like, it's just crazy.
What do you how, all these horrible kind of systematic problems? Other than obviously, you're running for office to try to help. What do other people? How do other people?
I mean, you could talk to your legislators. I mean, they are, well, now they're maybe starting to go back the other way, but the California legislature, they have been improving justice system. There's this Racial Justice Act. They were trying to actually reform bail, and then the bail industry got it before they implemented it, put it on the ballot. The felony murder, that's been changed, the felony murder rule. So they actually there's now discretion to strike a lot of prior strikes. All these things are getting better.
That's good to know.
But then now, with everyone saying, "Oh, there's so much crime," so now they're trying to go the other direction and make it so if you steal under $950, it could be a felony. They're trying to. Now I think the pendulum is sort of swinging the other way because there's this whole hype about there's too much. I mean, there's all this crime. Smash and grabs. My theory is that the reason they were going up is because they were telling everyone, oh, you want to get in trouble, Gascon will let you out, which isn't true, because I get those cases a lot. And so, of course, you're told, yeah, you're not going to get in trouble. People are going to do it. So that's my theory. But, I mean, yeah, I think...
You would have some insight that a lot of people don't, dealing with those perpetrators.
I think a lot of it's like a copycat crime type thing. Like, they see on the news... And most people never even thought of that. You might just walk into a store, grab a bunch of stuff, walk out, and they won't do anything. I think people kept seeing those clips, and then.
Well, we just had Wendy Carrillo, who has a bill, which is intended to kind of like criminalize more stuff or make,
The funny thing is, almost all those smash and grabs, they almost always reach the $950 limit. You take one purse. It's like $2,000, so it's like the only things that don't are like real petty shoplifting, which most people don't think you should go to prison for anyway. So it's kind of But they want their whole thing is like if you commit multiple petty thefts, they should be able to give you a felony. The threshold doesn't really matter because they're almost, and if two people do it, even if two people steal like a $5 something, that could be conspiracy. Could be a felony. Or if a security guard grabs you and you kind of break free, that's considered robbery. That's a strike. It's just so they're complaining because they can't charge felonies, but they almost always can. So it's kind of ridiculous.
Well, I appreciate you coming through, and I feel like there's so many different threads. Maybe I can coordinate some of my questions a little better next time, and we can do a Zoom or something.
Anytime, or I can come over. Not that far.
Yeah. Where do you live?
I like Hollywood.
Cool. Where at?
Like kind of west, like literally across the street from West Hollywood.
I used to live
So I'm not in West Hollywood, but
Fairfax area?
yeah, around Fairfax, yeah.
I used to live on Spalding. When I first moved to LA, it's such a great we went over there for that event, the Wesleyan event.
Oh yeah. Spalding and what?
Spalding and south of Santa Monica, north of Melrose.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, it was cool. I went back there recently and saw all the new houses.
I guess all these big mansions there.
Yeah. But at the time, it was like 2-bedroom, 2-bath, $1,000, which was a pretty great deal.
Oh yeah.
You know.
No, that's crazy. I mean, I can like the '90s when I moved here, it was like pretty cheap to live.
Yeah.
And
Where did you come from?
well, I'm from Colorado, but I lived in San Francisco for 2 years and straight from college, and their rents were a lot higher, and they still are, I guess. Or you get like the same rent, but like super small place. Or,
Yeah.
But even then, I had a place for like $750 in San Francisco with like a view of the whole, like the Bay Bridge and the whole downtown, and it was awesome. And
one thing that I'm kind of curious about is the hype and like you mentioned, the fear mongering and stuff. San Francisco seems to be getting a really bad rap as far as how the city's doing.
yeah, I not hear that all the time. I mean, when I was here in the '90s, there was dangerous areas and non-dangerous areas, and I think it's the same thing. Maybe there's more drugs than there were. I don't know, but it was still. I don't know if it's changed that much.
Yeah, I don't know how much to believe.
Yeah, I mean, LA doesn't seem that. I mean, every day I don't know.
Damn, we never even talked about the People's Law.
Oh yeah. Oh man.
Can we do 5 minutes on
Sure,
that?
sure.
All right, because I want to, like, this whole story about Gascon having been a cop. I have a lot of friends who went to law school. Maybe they couldn't pass the bar, but they became cops. And my dad worked at Northeastern University, where a lot of people who were like went to law school at night went and became lawyers mid-career or whatever. Not a lot of people know about the People's Law School.
Yeah, so the People's College of Law like started in the '70s, created by all these progressive groups, and it's been like an kind of a LA institution this whole time. Not everybody knows about it, but I only really knew about it because I worked for Art Goldberg at the Working People's Law Center, and he was teaching there. So then I volunteered. All the teachers are volunteer teachers. They have like one paid employee, and the bar just recently shut us down, and it's all based on goofy things like not having enough law books, like as if like anyone even goes to a law library anywhere. Everything's online, or just like the goofiest stuff. I mean, or like just paperwork, nothing about the education or anything like that. And they had a big hearing like last December, I think, and they wanted to shut it down right then. And they're saying, oh, well, you can just find another school and start in January next semester. Like, oh yeah, you can just apply to a law school in 2 weeks, and just it's so absurd. So luckily,
Is it low cost for the?
Oh yeah, that's the thing. So it was the least expensive in-person law school in the country, and it was for working people. It was at night, just like Northeastern, and it's a 4-year program. It's unaccredited. You have to take the baby bar, but you become lawyers. Mayor of Villaraigosa went there. They never passed the bar. But yeah, it's a great school, and I think the students learn more there than in regular law school because we have practitioners teaching us. They're teaching about the actual practice of law, and yeah, it's really a shame. And so there's all these students that now have to scramble to graduate their 4th year. And I'm taking like one on as to do you can read with a lawyer. And
What does that mean when you say that?
it's called the Law Office Study Program, where a student can just study under a lawyer, don't have to go to law school, and then they can become a lawyer. So I have one guy who actually did that.
Okay.
He passed the bar, but he still has to turn in this one application. So
How hard is the bar?
I don't know. I mean, it's hard to tell because you don't get your score if you pass, so you don't know like how
Right.
how much you've passed by.
I
But
didn't know that.
yeah, if you fail, they give it to you.
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't think it's that hard because like people went to like.
I think about the people that I know that are lawyers, and I think it can't be that hard. I don't mean-
No, I agree with you. No, I deal with the stupidest people. The thing. I mean, I hate to say this, but like at Wesleyan, I was probably like maybe a middle level student. At UCLA, I was like the top student. I mean, people at Wesleyan were so much smarter than at
Yeah,
law.
it's it's an amazing place. Did you ever see the show Perry Mason? Did I already ask you that?
Oh, we were talking about that.
It's a
Not
HBO
the new
show.
one. No, I haven't seen it. No.
It's so friggin' good, man. He's a goes to law school towards the end of the first season. I haven't seen the second season, but he had been a police officer, and it's set in old Los Angeles. And one of the stories is of the speaking of MacArthur Park, of the lady who founded the Angelus Temple right here in Echo Park, right by the lake. Amy Semple McPherson, and it's definitely worth it. I love old LA.
Oh yeah, I've heard of her, and she's kind of legendary, but I don't know too much about her.
She was like one of the most famous people in the world at the time because her whatever performances first were like to be broadcast when radio was just getting going.
Oh yeah.
And so she was sort of one of the major sort of figures in the early radio development. And she has a whole like interesting scandalous story that makes it even more fun to learn about.
Oh yeah, I'll have to check that out. Yeah, I've heard of her forever, but I don't know too much.
I finally went into the temple, and it's an amazing place right down there on the lake. It's actually now affiliated with an organization that does like housing folks called I forget, but it's not as easy to get in there as you would think. But it's really cool little gem hidden right in it, right down there by the lake.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to. Do you remember Dr. Gene Scott? He was always on. He was like a televangelist, but he was totally different than the average one. He was always. He was. I guess he had a PhD from Stanford or something in theology, and he'd write all his stuff on his board, and then he'd yell at everyone, and then he'd show like just videos of his horses running around, and but he had a church down in one of the huge movie theaters downtown, and I went there once, and they're like, this isn't an amen and hallelujah church. You guys just sit there and don't say anything. Look straight ahead. And then he's like, you're gonna be surprised when we start asking for money. And it's like, all right, it's tithing time. It's like, yeah, like going nuts. But he was just this crazy guy. Actually, Werner Herzog made a documentary about him in the 70s called God's Angry Man. You should check it out. But it's hard to describe. But he was just he'd wear 2 glasses and just smoke a cigar and just yell at everyone, and
Some people just have it.
yeah. So I don't know. You gotta check that guy out.
Sounds awesome.
He died maybe 20 years ago, but
You got to see him before.
yeah, he went to his funeral. Mayor Hahn was there. I mean,
Wow.
I guess he gave money to all kinds. He made so much money, so.
Were you going there sort of as a curiosity?
I just went there once as a curiosity, and almost didn't let us in. It's almost hard to go in there, and it was just weird. Actually, I lived in San Francisco. I worked at this. You know San Francisco at all?
Not really.
Okay, there's this huge. You've probably seen this huge TV tower. It's like the tallest thing in San Francisco. So I worked at the base of it at this TV station, just switching tapes out. But there were these Dr. Gene Scott devotees who lived up there, and all they would do is play his videos. There were these weird cult members. It's just a weird. You should look into this guy.
It's kind of funny when you move to LA to sort of see and on the radio, some of the like, you know, what do you call them, like self-improvement stuff. There's the vestiges of like, you know, this old world of semi-Pentecostal and maybe not even so scrupulous types of things. It's fun, you know. It's fun being in LA from
All
West
right.
Coast.
Yeah, I like it here.
It's different.
That's
Yeah.
why I stayed here.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, we can do it again anytime.
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
I got a little overload on all the different interviews I've been listening to of you and all the sort of campaign stuff that you're having to kind of
I
cover.
repeat myself. I try not to, but I always end up
It's
saying the same
impossible
thing.
not to. I mean, you gotta.
Yeah. But maybe I'll write